So I've had to restart this video 3 times, 4 times, because my bird in the background keeps making kissy noises at me, and it is so sweet. He's such a sweet boy. Um, so I'm hoping this time I will be left in silence to record, but we'll see. Um, this video is to discuss another subject of children's literature, referred to as board books. I'm hoping it's going to be a little easier to talk about than children's picture books, just in that I'm going to be doing more of a generative subject matter rather than like a specific like book recommendation video, just because I have even less board books than I do children's picture books. So yeah, what is a board book? Board books are something that a parent will tend to go towards very early on when they're looking to buy literature for their tot, just as they're like thicker, they're more durable, they're made of cardboard, they're meant to be chewed on, handled roughly, etc. You can kind of tell by this one that I picked up from Value Village. It's got like the thick, nice cardboard pages that are a little waxy, so it's kind of like, teething on its A-okay. They're typically intended for a younger age group. However, I'll never really provide a specific age range because, again, mileage may vary depending on the child's specific needs, and what exactly their interests and inclinations are and what stage in the reading tree they're at. So a good board book is something that's highly durable. It's educational. It's entertaining. Basically, what you're looking for is something that facilitates an interaction between the toddler and the book in a way that's meaningful and hopefully positive. Hopefully they like reading. And I just want to get on to now a couple of the notes that I've taken here about a couple examples of good board books and why they might be so. And again, this isn't meant to be like a specific, these are good board books. It's meant to kind of get you thinking a little more critically as to like, what is a board book and why might they be good for my child? So the first step I'm going to go through is the Gruffalo. This is a great book for story time. It teaches conventions of narrative in a really immaculate way. You have a nice, concise beginning, middle, and end, and it helps begin those expectations in the toddler about when there is a story, these are the components of that story, and these are the main characters, and this is how the story functions. Gruffalo is a great example of that. There are so many other great little story time books that reflect those conventions, which would stand in perfectly as well. So again, the Gruffalo are books like it. Very great. Next up, you'll see these books often at Costco. And the ones I kind of really want to get into more so are the Peek and Flip books, but I'll also discuss like these Peep Inside books as well. They're really cool in that for a child to interact with them, they can open up the book and they're kind of like a pop-up in that you have these elements of like being able to flip into the book and discover. And that I think is really important for a child to go through when they're interacting with literature for the first time, is to have those optimal moments of discovery, and that curiosity and that sense that a lot of kids are really innate with is, wanting to look for things that comes up in these books, and I think can be really well supporting their curiosity and their growth in that kind of exploration. So Peep Inside, Peep and Flip, great. However, I do have a few caveats for them, and these books do often reappear at Costco, particularly these Peek and Flip books. And while they are like the other board books that are out there and that they're great for teaching children how to interact with a book, and there's lots of flaps and there's lots of fun moments for discovery, I do find the language use in these books to be a little bit problematic. So, for example, in this International Space book, there are specific terms that are used, like International Space Station, crew compartment, specific constellations such as Cassiopeia. And while these are really interesting concepts and topics for children to learn about, especially when they get into the ages where they start deciding like that they're more inclined towards certain hobbies or tendencies or interests like space, nature, dinosaurs, these would be really great terms for them to learn later on. I find that if these board books are intended for younger demographics or demographics that are very early in their learning career, reading career, out interacting with books career, these terms are not necessarily beneficial for development in that sense. So I think at one point it even gets into like the specific names for certain satellites in space or like certain spaceships, and I think that those are fascinating concepts, but we need to bear in mind that when a child is interacting with a board book, that's kind of marking that they're very early on in their learning career. And I think I'm not overstretching when I say that when children hit a certain age, at least a lot of them that do, They kind of, at least I specifically went through a phase where, well, parent figure, I don't want to interact with like this book anymore. It's for little kids. It's too young for me. I'm like a big kid now, and I want to interact with big kid books, right? There's a certain level of pred, I think, that I went through, at least when I progressed from reading like children's picture books to reading my first novel. So I think for a lot of kids, there's not going to be a point where they go from point A, reading board books about dinosaurs, to reading picture books about dinosaurs, to reading novels about dinosaurs, or even like about space, and wanting to go back and be like, oh, what was that space constellation that I heard about when I was like 2 or 3 years old? Cassiopeia, right? So again, when we're going through a lot of these children's board books, children's picture books, we need to be asking ourselves the important question of, who is this book for exactly? Is the language and diction in this book intended for the parent that's interacting with the child to kind of refresh their training about Cassiopeia? Or is it for a child to learn about a space constellation or a star constellation that they might not have heard about before? And then what's the difference between like a child hitting their vocabulary limit with words like Cassiopeia and, for example, reading a more recreational series such as here I have this box set collection of like Pokemon 1, 2, 3. So when we hit, like, for example, a lot of these books that are meant to be educational, what is the difference between learning about International Space Station and learning about a Pokemon such as like Ninetales? What's the linguistic benefit between the two sets of books? So I think, I leave this entirely to the discretion of the parents, and that, you need to decide what kind of, books you want to have on hand and around your house. But I personally, my opinion is that I hold that learning about fun things like Pokemon and complex concepts such as numeracy skills and numbers and amounts through something such as like Pokemon might actually prove to be beneficial, in that it can help break down those complex concepts into a much more approachable and easy to digest fashion. So there's like this box set that Costco brought in a little while ago, where it was just like Pokemon ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, shapes, and colors. And I think that this is a handy tool for definitely breaking down some of those bigger concepts. But like, again, mileage may vary, opinion may vary, if we're in the early stages of literacy and literary development, do we want our child learning necessarily like about Pokemon types? I personally don't see the harm in it, but to each their own. So anyways, this video is mostly an opinion piece yet again, but it's kind of the point of my channel, is to just kind of provide my insight and honest take on certain things. I hope that I helped give some insight into about like, when you're buying board books, being able to look at them a little more critically and decide like, who is this board book for? And if you knew nothing about board books, I hope I gave a little bit of a tidbit into like, yeah, these are books for kids, and there are books before picture books, and they are helpful and beneficial to our growth and development as readers. So anyways, as usual, thanks for your time.